my name is Carol Atkinson. I am a circuit judge, a senior circuit judge, and I'm the designated family judge for East London, which means that I'm the judge in charge of the delivery of family justice in 1/3 of London, that's East London. Bizarrely enough, when I was about 9 years of age, I watched this television series called Justice, and it had a woman that you've probably never heard of called Margaret Lockwood in it, who was a very famous actress. It was in black and white. It was made by Yorkshire Television, and she was a female barrister working in the north, and she was fabulously glamorous, so that ticked all of the boxes for me, age 9. I started to do some family law and I actually really liked it, so that's how I ended up doing mostly family law in my career at the bar. And that's what I've done mostly as a judge. I think you've got to be prepared to make decisions that you don't actually like sometimes, because the evidence drives you in that direction. That can be quite tough. I think you have to be prepared to work really hard. And although it's impossible not to be concerned about people, you have to leave those things behind you when you leave the courtroom and you leave the building, so that you can look after yourself and your own well-being. Well, looking at me, I suppose it doesn't matter what upbringing you've had, because I came from a working class family in the northeast. I went to a state school. I was the first person in my family to go to university. I'm still the only person in my family to have gone to university. And so to that extent, I had no connections with the law. I remember when I wanted to be a barrister, going to see some solicitors in my local town and being told that I'd never get anywhere because I didn't have any connections in the law, but I didn't have any connections in the law. So it was hard, but it was possible. So no, I don't think you have to have a certain type of upbringing to be a judge. That's one of the myths, I suppose. There are lots of skills you need to be a judge, but just highlighting some, I would say that you have to be prepared to listen carefully and hear what people are saying. Particularly now that we have so many litigants in person, people who are not lawyers, and it may not be clear at the beginning quite what they're getting at. It would be a mistake to assume that because they're not a lawyer, they're not making a good point. Often there is a good point in there, you've just got to listen. The second thing is you've got to be a good lawyer, because sometimes you may be the only lawyer in the room. And I think the third thing I would say is that you have to have a real sense of fairness in the process, making sure that everyone can access the process and facilitating their access to the process. I think the members of the public, some of them don't think that we're ordinary people, but we are. You know, I get on my bike to come to work, or if I don't get on my bike, I get on a bus and I come on a tube and a train and I travel with everybody else. And I've got children and I have a family, and when I've finished here this evening, I'll go home, and just like many other mums, I'll be responsible for cooking and cleaning up, no doubt, and taking the dog for a walk. So we're ordinary people. I think that's often a misconception. Judicial independence is absolutely fundamental to everything we do. It's a prerequisite to the rule of law. And it's also a guarantee of fairness within the system. The oath that we take, the judicial oath that we take, is to do right by all manner of people without fear or favour, affection or ill will. And that's really, really important. That means that we come into a courtroom clean and we are fair to everybody and ensure that everybody has a fair chance. It's important that the public believe in the rule of law, and the public believe that the judiciary is independent and fair and will make decisions according to the rules that we have in our society. and not to be swayed in any way by any other factors, any external factors, any prejudices. We all have prejudices inside us, any beliefs or anything that comes from government or from within the judiciary. Okay, well, we sit in court between the hours of about 10 and 4 or 4:30. It can be a little bit longer sometimes. Outside of those hours, we're preparing the cases, we're reading them. We're dealing with what we call box work, which is paperwork about cases, moving them on through the system. Also, the judiciary is really heavily involved in outreach work. So I have judges who go into schools and speak to people and tell them about what it's like to be a judge. And also, most of us are involved in other things like education. For a long time, I was part of the Judicial College, and that's being involved in educating other judges. And the other thing I do is that I'm the lead judge for research across family justice. And so that involves me in looking at research proposals and encouraging researchers to look at various aspects of our work and look at projects to provide us with research-based evidence. So, I mean, I think what's interesting post-pandemic, not that we're quite post-pandemic yet, is that my typical day before the pandemic was that I would be sitting at this desk in this room from about 7 or 7:30 in the morning, and I'd have meetings often in the mornings starting at about 8:30 or 9, and at the same time I'd be preparing for my case, and my cases start at 10 o'clock. And then I'm in hearings until lunch, and then as the designated family judge, I'll have meetings over lunch, and then as I resume my hearings at 2 and finish about 4, and then start reading the papers for the following day. But then usually I'll have other meetings at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. The pandemic has made us all reevaluate the way in which we work. And I, for one, I'm not here at 7 o'clock in the morning anymore. I take a little bit more time in the morning, walk my dog. Important for my well-being that I just take things a little bit more slowly. And that's the advice I'm giving to my own judges, just to take things at a more even pace, because otherwise we're going to succumb to problems with all of the pressures that we're under. So my day is pretty much the same, but it starts a little bit later, I expect, these days.